Oh my god. Bella and Edward are like laying down on my table like this. Guys, some decency, please. Hey guys, it's Fief. Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, thank you so much for being here. If you've been here before and you're back, thank you for being here once again. Okay, what's funny is I really, like, kid you not, literally just finished this book 5 minutes ago. So if you're watching this, you know what we're doing here tonight. You know what's gonna happen. We are going to talk about this thick, big, yes. What year was it when Stephenie Meyer was like, oh, I'm gonna release Midnight Sun, and she posted like a sneak peek of it on maybe fanfic.net or AO3. Where did she post it? We're here now. We finally have read Midnight Sun, the Twilight book in Edward's perspective. And if you're new here to Twilight, if you've never read Twilight, this has been a project going on for the longest time. This is like Stephenie Meyer's version of All Too Well, where people think that the All Too Well 10-minute version is entirely new and something she wrote for the re-recording of her Red album. But no, Taylor Swift wrote the 10-minute version of All Too Well back when it was released. It was cut, you know, that wasn't the original version. So this is Stephenie Meyer's version of the 10-minute version of All Too Well. This is Twilight, Stephenie Meyer's version. What I'm trying to say is this isn't something that she just came up with out of the blue to stay relevant. You know what I mean? This has been existing for years, almost a decade, over a decade, we don't know. But as Twilight fans, like, the fandom has always been holding this in our hearts, in our minds. We have wondered where this went, or if it still was ever gonna come out, and here it is. We've read it, I've read it, I have thoughts. I'm just gonna read my notes, basically. I'm just gonna go through my experience with whoever is watching this video, and I just like to clear the air. I am a hardcore, well, I wouldn't call myself the hardcore, but I am a hardcore Twilight fan. Like, Twilight, it is probably the book I've read the most. I've reread the most in my entire life. I read Twilight, like specifically the first book, Twilight, so many times, probably like, dare I say it, 50 times. I'm not joking. Do you see this face? I am not joking. I am not exaggerating. Maybe a little bit, maybe 45. We don't know. But I just want to tell you, like, sorry, I'm going off tangent, but this whole video is a tangent, okay? Basically, reading Midnight Sun for me was a very specific experience, because since I've read Twilight so much in my youth, in high school, I read it more than I should have. More than I should have done my homework, more than I should have slept, more than I should have, you know, built an ambition for myself. So reading Midnight Sun was like going back to that history, that really specific part of my life where I was so hooked with Twilight. Twilight was the only thing that made me happy, and not even just the movie. Like, I love, okay, not it's an unpopular opinion, not everybody loved the movie. The movie wasn't very, you know, true to the book. It didn't treat the book as gospel, obviously, but I still enjoyed it. Like, I'm not gonna lie about anything here. I am down to earth, honest. There are no blurred lines here. I am just spewing factual things going inside my brain. So I did love Twilight the movie. It was awkward as hell. It was super freaking blue. Like, can I just say, can I just emphasize how blue it was? Okay, it was blue as heck. But did we love it? Did we love the Cullens entrance scene in the cafeteria where Jessica was like introducing the Cullens one by one? Did we love Carlisle's entrance inside the emergency room? Did we love the baseball scene? That was a cinematic experience in itself. We did. So, again, I cannot lie. Reading Twilight as much as I did, you would know how the structure of the story goes and what how the dialogue goes, because I have specific chapters that I am super in love with in Twilight. Okay, you know what? Hold that thought. Let me get Twilight. I just want to give a shout out to my friend Justine who gave this to me for my birthday. It's freaking Edward and Bella figurines. So this is my Twilight book, and nobody judge me for having the movie cover. I used to stare at this all day long. I even have the exclusive poster. It says exclusive poster inside. And it's not here. Specifically, my favorites were Interrogations, Confessions, Mind Over Matter. Mind Over Matter was one of my favorite chapters in this book. But I love the chapters where it was just Edward and Bella together. They were talking. I absolutely am in love with their banter in Twilight. Doesn't get old for me. And believe it or not, I memorized these lines. Like, these conversations, I memorize them. It's more of like muscle memory. I read it, I know what Bella is going to say, I know what Edward is going to say. So reading Midnight Sun is like, okay, what are Edward's thoughts? Okay, you know what? I've been talking too long. Let me just read you my notes. Edward found Bella's face unremarkable at first sight. Lol. It was so funny because the first time Edward saw Bella was through the minds of like Forks kids in high school. So he can read minds, right? So he's like, oh, there's a new kid, and he hears this, sees this through other people's heads. And the first time he sees Bella's face, and he's just like, oh, okay, another new girl. Unremarkable. I just found that funny. He was actually planning to kill her during bio class along with 20 other people in the room. Interesting. This I found really interesting because I didn't know he was actually like, okay, Edward is an overthinker because he visualizes things before they happen, and that is a sign of an overthinker, which is I think he got from Alice because he's used to seeing visions of the future from Alice. He literally painted the next few minutes from meeting Bella in his head, and he like imagined already killing her, killing the 20 other students in the room, including the teacher, cleaning up his mess. Like, how are they gonna go through after he murders Bella, because he was so enticed with her blood, she smelled so good and everything, yada yada yada. We know this, but it was just so interesting that he was actually planning it in his head. He wasn't like, ah, okay, murder. No, he was calculating how he's gonna do it. Like, okay, I'm gonna start with her, and then I will proceed to murder and drain everybody in this room, and I am going to clean up my mess, and then I will get my family and we'll move to a different location. Charlie's thoughts are also more subdued to Edward. Theory, a swan thing? Okay, so Edward mentions that Charlie's thoughts are actually more muffled to him than all the other thoughts, and he actually thought that he was just kind of like a dense person. My theory is maybe because like it's a lineage thing, maybe it's because like the swans. Is there something with the swans that he can't read their thoughts, because he can't read Bella at all? And for Charlie, all he doesn't see clear memories, clear thinking. Then like with others where he can clearly read their minds, it's different. So interesting. Also, we never knew this in Twilight. An obsessed vampire stalker. Edward is self-aware. Yeah, he's called himself a stalker so many times in this book, and you know, we're glad about the self-awareness. But yeah, he's still a stalker, by the way. I think that's the #1 red flag that everybody realized as we've progressed as a society after Twilight. Like, the post-Twilight happenings in society was just like, oh no, he's a stalker. He watches her while she sleeps and creeps into her room and all that. The self-awareness here about him being a stalker is, it actually got too much, where I was just like, Edward, shut up. Like, we know you're a stalker. We're literally reading about it. High school. Purgatory no longer. It was now purely hell. Torment and fire. Yes, I had both. Edward is just like other teenagers. Also, he's a drama queen. This is the #1, like, I don't know, critique or observation I have with Midnight Sun as compared to Twilight. I noticed that Edward thinks more than Bella does. He thinks so much, too much actually, that I kind of found it a bit like the characterization that Stephenie Meyer created with regards to Edward's mind. A lot of it was kind of too much. I honestly don't think a man will think this way, you know? He was overreacting so many times, and I find it hard to believe that Bella was looking at this man in Twilight and was like, oh, he's chill. I mean, he's probably had like 100 years to practice a stoic face, but his brain is just crazy. Maybe it's the writing? I'm in denial about Edward thinking this way. It's more of the way he, like, his thoughts are formed. It's so incoherent sometimes. Edward Cullen is an overthinker. He forms scenarios in his head before anything even happens. He needs therapy. I mentioned this. It's really his thoughts. Like, I kind of feel bad for the guy that Stephenie Meyer portrayed him this way, because he does not chill. Like, he has zero chill. It's actually pretty embarrassing the way he thinks. Dude needs to calm down. How confusing and incomprehensible the workings of her mind were. She must not think in the same way as other humans at all. That must be the explanation behind her mental silence. She was entirely other. Okay, I found this a bit too much, and I said Edward Cullen thinks too highly of Bella. He must have not met a lot of people before in his 300 years. Entirely other seems like a stretch. Yeah, I just found it a bit, like, he went a bit too far when he was like, she was entirely other, and I was like, you have not met that much people if you think this girl is entirely other. But then again, I guess this is really the she's not like other girls trope, so I kind of get it, the way he's painting her. But he reads minds, so for him to say that she's entirely other, I find it hard to believe that he has not found anybody remotely similar to this girl, because there are so many people like this girl. The only way I could be positive she was safe was if there was someone in place to catch the meteorite before it could touch her. The jittery high swept through me again when I realized that I was going to find the girl. He sounds like a teenager who's trying to convince himself that he deserves to go shopping even if he has no more savings. It's funny because this is when he started stalking Bella, and he kept trying to convince himself that, oh, okay, I'm just following her into her home and peeking at her through her window watching her sleep because I think a meteorite is gonna fall on her. Like, that was literally the way he was trying to convince himself that this was okay. He was in denial that he was being a creepy stalker, not just because he wanted to be a creepy stalker and stare at her beautiful face all night, but he keeps telling himself that he needs to protect her from like earthquakes and meteorites and like volcanic eruptions, burglaries, I don't know, like the most mundane things, because he like actually believes she is a magnet for danger, and that is hilarious. Mind reading, execution, writing. People don't think in dialogue. This is a bit weird. Edit, it's weird all throughout. This is what I noticed when it comes to the execution with the mind reading with Edward. I don't know, is it just me? Do you think in dialogue? Like, in your head, is it like a string of sentences when you think? Because when he reads minds, like for example, like Bella's classmates, Jessica, Mike, he can hear actual coherent sentences, and I'm like, I am never that coherent in my head. Oh my god, this is funny, this is funny. Sorry, I have to read a whole quote. You don't care if I'm a monster? If I'm not human? No. I started to wonder if she was entirely stable. I suppose that I could arrange for her to receive the best care available. Carlisle would have the connections to find her the most skilled doctors, the most talented therapists. Perhaps something could be done to fix whatever it was that was wrong with her, whatever it was that made her content to sit beside a vampire with her heart beating calmly and steadily. I would watch over the facility, naturally, and visit as often as she allowed. Edward Cullen actually believed and thought for a second that Bella Swan was clinically insane. Like, he honestly, swear to God, thought that he needed to check her in a mental facility because she didn't care that he was a vampire and that he was dangerous. I don't even know what to say. Take a shot for every time Edward says he has to stay away from Bella but doesn't. True, he says this multiple times, but again, I mean, Edward and Emmett Cullen are matchmakers. Cute. There was this scene in the book that we never saw, that we never even knew about, where Emmett and Edward played matchmaker to Bella's friend Angela and this other friend, like this other guy called Ben. Was his name Ben? And it was so cute. At first I found it like a bit weird because, you know, would 100-year-old vampires actually do this and actually care? But I mean, it was cute. I guess it was funny, but it was cute. Bella Swan is not like other girls because she reads classics. I mean, that's a statement that can fend for itself. We're learning more about Edward's history. Nice, I guess. The narration is a little off. The writing still sounds like Bella, or at least the inside of a woman's head. I know we wanted like background stuff on Edward's history and the history of the family and behind the scenes on stuff we didn't see in Twilight where Bella wasn't around, but some were just, I don't know if it was because I was too impatient for the story to progress and I just wanted Twilight to happen in Edward's eyes, but I didn't find them completely necessary. I just felt like, honestly, the book was Twilight in Edward's perspective, of course, but Twilight with inserts. It was exactly like the Twilight book, but with fan fiction inserts within the book. That is honestly my most accurate opinion about it. It never occurred to me that Rosalie was this awful. Yeah, she was really mean. I never knew how the extent of Rosalie's hate for Bella was, especially at first, because, you know, we never really had a lot of Rosalie scenes in Twilight, and we would only get what Edward would tell Bella, which wasn't a lot, because I guess he didn't want to hurt her feelings, but I didn't know she hated her to such extent. Like, she was jealous AF. She was so narcissistic. I didn't know her narcissism extended to this level. It was terrible. But again, these are not my characters, so it was just a bit off-putting, a bit, to know Rosalie one way and then find out she's not that at all. Quite a few times Edward describes things like Bella's reactions and his assumptions of her thoughts as if trying to fill the blanks in Twilight. Example, he assumes her feelings as if he can read her well. It's obviously a blank filler and, to be honest, completely unnecessary. This is his story, not hers. I was just hoping for a different kind of execution to the book, but it really was like a fill in the blanks. Like, oh, what was Edward thinking in this time when Bella was saying this? This is what he was thinking. And it wasn't really giving us anything new. We've already assumed that these were Edward's thoughts when we were reading Twilight. I mean, especially if you were like me, who has read Twilight as much as I had, you would have already assumed everything that goes on in Midnight Sun. Stephenie Meyer would have profited more with writing Carlisle and Esme's story. 100% true. Like, even in Midnight Sun, we didn't get enough Carlisle and Esme. I mean, we got more than we got in Twilight. She should write the Carlisle and Esme story and make herself rich again, because we freaking need it. I swallowed Bella's tear. Perhaps it would never leave my body. After she left me, after all the lonely years had passed, maybe I would always have this piece of her inside me. Okay, this is weird. He drank her tear. Like, he got her tear and tasted it and said, I would always have this piece of her inside me. That is not the way to be inside a person. Food for thought. Not at Edward panicking that it'll take 3 days for Bella to recover. Sir, she was drowning in her blood when you found her. Why is he such a drama queen? This is after they found her with James. They've killed James. They've saved the day. He was panicking because in Alice's visions, it would take 3 days for Bella to wake up because she would be sedated and she had broken ribs. She broke her leg. She had fractures in her skull and she lost a lot of blood. Not to mention, she was bitten by a vampire. Almost became a vampire. She can take a month to recover and he has no business complaining, honestly. Honestly, 3 days is no time. This is so funny. Edward Cullen holding his bloody girlfriend in his arms and thinking about how avant-garde Alice looks. This is so true. Okay, this is like a minute detail in the book where they were on their way to the hospital because they saved Bella, and Alice was supposed to clean up the mess. Like, she was supposed to stage this whole, like, because what their alibi is Bella fell off the stairs, right? And, you know, threw herself out the window and she was severely injured. So she was supposed to paint the scene for the police, for the hotel staff, for her parents. And Alice borrowed Emmett's shirt. And Alice is described as a really small, pixie-like person. And Emmett is this, like, humongous man. So when she borrows Emmett's shirt, she drowned in it. But Edward was literally holding Bella in his arms and she was all bloody and he was trying not to eat her at the back of a car, and not in a good way. But he still notices how Alice is looking in her brother's oversized sweatshirt and was like, oh, Alice looks so avant-garde. I honestly don't need this whole replay of James x Bella. You know what? Same. True. I mean, I wrote that, so yes, me. I don't know if you guys remember, but James, the tracker, was filming that whole scene in the dance studio with Bella where he was scaring her and he was injuring her and he was quite literally killing her. In Midnight Sun, we see Edward with the footage of that video and he watches everything from start to finish. And there's this whole chapter where he just recounts everything that happened. And I'm like, why do I need this? Like, honestly, what? Are we doing this because you want to show me how much you're suffering? I don't need this. Like, I know you suffered. Like, what? And along with the other unnecessary scenes in the book that was replayed from Twilight, I just honestly was like, okay, this is quite pointless. I have no more notes, that's all. Like, despite all of the funny and quite questionable things that happened in this book, one thing I will say, multiple things I will say is I genuinely did enjoy Midnight Sun. I don't think it's something that you should be like, oh my god, we're gonna discover so many things. No, you're not gonna discover a lot of things. It's really just a fan fiction of like your favorite book and you want more from that book. I think the reason why a lot of people are just a bit thrown off about the publication of Midnight Sun is because it took so incredibly long for it to come out, and now people have grown up, moved on. I obviously haven't. If you're a Twilight fan like me, like if you really went through the whole, like all the stages of grief when it comes to Twilight, I think you will enjoy this one. You will see a lot of flaws in it, like I did. You will scrutinize things, you will question if you really did like Edward. I mean, I still do, I still am team Edward, but I think I'm gonna choose to ignore like this picture of him. But yeah, it was a treat. It was definitely like a little nostalgic trip down memory lane, and I am glad I read it. Like I'm not even surprised that I'm happy I read it. It's not like a 5-star for me, but it's one of the highlights of my 2021 reads because I now want to revisit Twilight and revisit Bella's brain because I think I'm more comfortable in Bella's brain. I definitely think it's because of the whole narration, and I think Stephenie Meyer is better off narrating as Bella. There we have Midnight Sun. I hope you enjoyed this video. Did I mention that this has the most beautiful dedication page that I have ever read in my entire life? I read this in a previous video, but I just want to read it again here for you. This book is dedicated to all the readers who have been such a happy part of my life for the last 15 years. When we first met, many of you were young teenagers with bright, beautiful eyes full of dreams for the future. I hope that in the years that have passed, you've all found your dreams and that the reality of them was even better than you'd hoped. I honestly think this book is worth reading just for that dedication. Like, I would do anything for Stephenie Meyer at this point just because of that dedication. Like, if you read Twilight in a formative time in your youth, like in your teens especially, I think it will be a good thing to read this and revisit that memory, because not only did I unlock core memories within Twilight, I've also unlocked that really youthful feeling I had when I was reading this, and it was just like a blissful feeling. I guess that's it. Thank you guys so much for swinging by my channel. Good night, good morning, good afternoon. I hope you're having a wonderful week, and if you are going somewhere this weekend, stay safe, masks on. I'll see you next time. Mwah. Bye bye. See you in your dreams, not in a stalker Edward way, but I love you. Bye bye.